everybody.
Hey, everyone.
So it's Joe and Abbey back at it.
Yeah. We have a friend in the back that might pop his head out periodically.
No, he's not. It's
Neo.
our dog, Neo.
He's a good boy. There's Neo.
Joseph's coat is covering his cute little face.
He's a Bernese mountain dog back there, so he's just super friendly and sweet. He's like,
As you can see, he doesn't want to be in the back. He wants to go run around and play.
Yeah, but where we're at, we can't really do that right now. So
yeah.
You stuck with us for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just chilling out in the back.
Neo's almost 2 years old. He'll be 2 years old in May.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit about Joe and I, some things that you have been asking about.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe and I, yes, we are married. We've been married since January 16th of 2021. So we've been married for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've known each other since February of 2016. And we do journeys together. We're very spiritual people. And we love feeling connected with the spirit realm and sharing about our experiences. So naturally, I have my YouTube channel. Abbey Normal and Joe has his YouTube channel.
Which I don't spend enough time developing.
I would love to see him make more videos. Wouldn't you guys love to see him make more videos?
It's just that sometimes life just gets complicated and don't really have the ability to do videos as much as I would like.
Yeah.
So.
We could use some of your help here because we would love to get your recommendations. What would you like us to talk about?
Yeah, you got some good news, though. You can tell them. You're excited to tell them.
Okay, yes. All right, I wasn't thinking about this, but of course I'm also thinking about this. I'm going to be on the Kryon Healing Wednesday Show. It's official. You guys, every one of you that have helped me to get on the Kryon Healing Wednesday Show, I want to thank you so very much for this. I haven't come out with it just yet because I had to do, they had contacted me and then we had to do just a double check kind of conversation, get a feel for how this all works, and I'm officially on their schedule. So I will be live on the Kryon Healing Wednesday Show April 26th. Isn't that awesome? So that's the big news. So I want to thank you guys for helping me get on there. Yeah, so...
Yeah, that's exciting, actually. It really is.
Yeah, so... I can't wait to see where this takes me, you know what I mean?
It's also interesting because Kryon is one of the reasons why we met. Not the Kryon, but the spirit of Kryon. It has a very interesting story behind that. Someday we might talk more about it.
Yeah.
But it was like he was actually contacting me in a lot of ways, and he was contacting Abbey, and it's one of the reasons why we met. It was a friend of mine that actually introduced me to Abbey, so... Yeah. It was funny because she's such a different way she does things is so different compared when I first watched her videos. It's like, anyway, lots changed.
My very beginning videos where I have my face forward, I was pretty nervous and I was trying to figure out how to talk about the weird things I was experiencing, and I was very shy about it, trying to build confidence. So my whole channel will show you how far I've come just with self-expression and development of my own talent and all of that.
We all grow. That's one of the things when you do spiritual work. It's like you want to expand. So if you do journeys and spiritual work, you're going to automatically be changing. If you're open to it, you're going to constantly get new ideas, and your journey styles will change over the time, because as you do journeys, you'll discover new things, which then the next time you use those things in your journeys, and it just expands and expands and expands, and grow and grow and grow and grow. It's just inevitable. You're gonna grow spiritually the more journeys you do. The connection is going to be more stronger as well, more clear, more specific to what you do. And that's when some of the questions that I get asked a lot is, well, I don't see anything. Well, maybe you're not meant to at this point, but you still have to do journeys in order to develop your skill. It's like if you're a doctor and you never, ever, ever, and you're a surgeon, you never do surgery, you're going to get better at it? No. You don't need to get better at anything. You have to actually do it.
Yeah.
A carpenter is only as good as the last thing he did. So that if he's done 1,000 jobs, then you might want to consider hiring that carpenter if his work is actually good, because usually when a person does 1,000 jobs, they have learned a lot.
Yeah.
If you got somebody that's only did it the first time, you might want to think twice. before you hire that person.
Yeah.
Or you do work with that person. It's the same thing with spiritual people. The more experiences you have, the better you are at doing what you do.
Yeah.
And as simple as that. And then the more connected you are. But everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses in anything, or just, you won't even call it weaknesses. This is a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
So
a major point I want to make is I find people will stand in the way of themselves. And it sounds like a convenient thing to say or a convenient thing to believe, but you're just standing in the way of yourself. So if you ever want to expand your skills, don't just fall back on, well, I tried and it didn't work. That's not enough. It's like a kid that learns, a little baby that learns how to stand. They keep trying and trying until they get it right. And next thing you know, they're figuring out a way from walk from here to there, and then they're running. Before you know it, they're on the go. Like they don't stand in the way of themselves. They just follow their heart and they let their heart guide them, and nothing stands in their way. So if you really want to develop an ability to experience the spirit realm communicating with you, you can do that. I don't even want to say you can do that. You are already doing that. So when you say, okay, I'm already doing this, it's like I'm just fine tuning my ability to tell how I'm doing it, and then how to continue to build upon that. And
well, I mean, it's a really good point, because like I said, you have to do it in order to get good at it. And it takes years to master spiritual work. It doesn't take days. It doesn't take weeks. It's not like you can do a binge and become a master spiritual person overnight. And spiritual person is probably the wrong way of saying it, because it is somebody that does specific work. It takes years to master it.
Yeah.
You don't get good at something overnight.
Yeah.
So when you want to go to learn how to do journeys, or to do shamanism, or do Reiki, or there's all kinds of different ones out there, you don't learn it overnight. Don't expect to learn it overnight. So you got to be patient with yourself. Second guessing yourself goes with the territory. It's like when you hear stuff, question it. But don't question it to the point where you can't move on from it. So it's like, I always do journeys all the time, and you get specific things and quick answers. You have to be able to navigate what that truly means. And that takes time. And so don't think that if you hear in a spiritual journey that you're the second coming of Christ, you might want to take a step back from that and really understand what that is truly saying to you.
Yeah.
And because if you say that you're second coming of Christ, is that true? It could be, but most likely it's not the truth. However, it doesn't mean it wasn't meant to be something that was said to you in order to help you understand more about yourself, about your own weaknesses. Because they could tell you that specifically to test whether or not your ego is in the way. Because like people's egos get wrapped up in spirituality, and all of a sudden they're John of God.
Yeah.
And John of God, we all know what happened to him. And this is the parts about spiritual people that drive me nuts. Is because there's a lot of, not all of them, there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there, though, that will lie and manipulate people in order to better themselves in their own version of reality. Telling your personal truth. And this is why spirituality is so complicated, because my understanding of spirituality is going to be different than yours. However, to be a spiritual person, you have to be able to be true to what you're seeing and stating and feeling, and you say the truth.
Yes.
You can't see something and then say it differently, because it might cause a person to react, or not quite the way I think something should be. When you do journeys, you have to allow your spiritual higher selves, your guides, to guide the information coming to you. You don't put the information there. The information comes to you. So you have to take your ego, put it aside, and you have to allow the people that know more to give you the information. Because I'm sorry, we're all dumb. when it comes to our spiritual higher selves. We're like literally ants walking around in the ground, in the earth, and the friggin' supreme lords are our higher selves. And we should listen to them because they know a hell of a lot more than we do. And to think otherwise is ego. And that will get you in trouble every single time.
So it comes back to, I guess the word would be discernment, because it's okay to receive a message, whether the message was spoken in your head or it's just something you're picking up on. It wasn't actually a thought or an idea. It's just something that you feel you've known your whole life. And then you explore it. So you could say John of God, he could very well believe that he is John of God and doing all of the things that he ended up doing. What was discovered about him that revealed he wasn't as holy of a man as he was alluding to. He could have been completely wrapped up in his own self-illusions and in convincing other people to be as wrapped up in the illusion as he was, or not able to finally just say, what am I doing? I need to stop. I'm not being my truth. I'm being whatever I'm saying I am being because it's giving me a lot of perks. It's giving me a lot of gifts. It's giving me a lot of money. But the whole point about being spiritual or spiritually open, part of that process is brutal honesty. Honesty, authenticity. Because when I talk to God, when I talk to my guides, I am completely and utterly myself, and I find it fun to try to be so myself. I like to find little nooks and crannies within myself where I might say something I would never want to hear myself say, or to try to be so honest that it would make me feel a little embarrassed that I might have had that thought or that idea. Because every human being has thoughts that if you were to stop and say, why in the heck did I just have that thought? That already is a spiritual development. That's already a growth within and of yourself, because you're being observant. You're acknowledging with all honesty and authenticity that thought. Is that thought a physical concept? Is it a frequency wave? Is it your vibration? Is it your soul? Is it your subconscious? Where is that thought coming from? Is that really you that had that thought? But this is the interesting adventure that you can take, which is a journey, right? So being spiritually open is a journey of self-discovery. So you could say Second Coming of Christ has 10,000 different meanings to it. So if we are all one, then we are all the second coming of Christ. But what are we going to do with that? How can we be our most Christ-conscious selves? Joseph just took the light out of the situation. It made it more comfortable. It was too bright in here.
Well, I think it's very important, because when you see people like John of God, I don't want to pick on the guy. I think more than anything is it happens time and time again. Cult leaders, spiritual people become cult leaders. It's not because they didn't start off that way, because there's a lot of people in the world that truly are very innocent when they start off. However, they listen to the wrong energy. And because they listen to energy, for instance, that will manipulate them over time, and they end up becoming something they really wouldn't have ever agreed to do at the beginning. So that's why you have to be honest about what you feel and see. When you're dishonest, that, again, especially if it works in your favor, you make more money than you did by being dishonest, then that creates more dishonesty, and all of a sudden everything you're saying is a lie. So that's part of the problem with being a spiritual person, is that there is a very strong ability for, you could say, demonic beings, dark energies, whatever you want to call them, to whisper in your ear in order to manipulate you into believing that all these things that are hurting other people or benefiting you by hurting other people and by lying and manipulating is okay to do, until the point where you're the person that you never thought you would ever become. So that's why it's so important to be honest and be truthful. It doesn't mean that you have to believe what I say. Doesn't it? It means that I am true to what I am experiencing and how I portray that. And maybe these people believe, except at some point in time, they went astray and they kept going astray and they still might believe what they're saying, except what they're saying isn't what they're saying anymore. It's what a demonic being or a dark energy wants them to believe. And now your energy shifted to, you're getting your energy from a dark source, and you're so manipulated that you believe that it's coming from light, even though there's a part of your soul that understands that it's not, but you're in acceptance of it because it's giving you what you think you want. And that is a problem. And that's why when you're a spiritual person, you always got to be honest and tell the truth and be respectful and always use love. Because if you don't, then you could go down a journey that you might not want to be in a few years, and you become somebody completely different. So food for thought. Not trying to scare people, but I think it's important for people to understand why our world's so screwed up today.
Yeah.
Because the world is full of people that listen to the whispers about me and how I'm important and nobody else is. If you come across a being that tells you to worship it, go on your hands and knees and worship me, that's not love. When you come across something that says that you need to do this, even though it's going to hurt other people, it's not coming from love. When you're more important than the other people, and they tell you that you're more important than such and such, that's not coming from love.
Yeah.
Love is respect for all living things and working together to accomplish a common goal to the greater good of everyone. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a world like that? But the world is full of people listening to the whispers instead of listening to the truth and speaking the truth.
Yeah. I have a lot of different thoughts running through my head right now. Even so much as to ask you a question, Joe. Okay, so let's say over the last, we've known each other since February 2016. I actually did a reading for him on Valentine's Day. Isn't that kind of cool? We've been through a lot over the years, and we've heard a lot. We always do journeys into the upcoming year to kind of get a feel for, oh man, and we would do a journey in the upcoming year, and it would look so crazy. Okay, it's going to be you're on this crazy roller coaster, and it's going to go straight, and then it's going to turn this way and it's this way. And it's I don't know that I want to believe what they're telling me, because that looks way too difficult, and it would end up being so freaking complicated. And so it's really when it comes to receiving messages, I'm willing to be open-minded and to work with that as an idea. But if I take this stuff to heart, there's something different about how that can affect me versus food for thought. You know what I mean? Because they will tell you all kinds of things that's actually really interesting food for thought, but you don't have to take it to heart. We had a retreat property for a few years, right? We got it right in November of 2019. November of 2019 is when the whole world went through a major transformation. So we had this retreat property, and it was difficult. We did a lot of journeys into this because there's no tourism. It was all stopped, and we had to go through a very difficult time. Ended up having to sell it in May of 2022.
Just before everything went through the roof, though, so it was a good time.
Yeah. But in the end, it's in life, you feel the next blessing could be the next... I know. But life truly is how you work through it. And it's kind of one of the more difficult lessons that I've learned is that you don't really have anything. You can't have people. You can't have your dream come true. You can't have, because life is always part of the learning. You can have learning, You can always have learning, but as a human being, you want comforts. You want to know that you have the ground to stand on and to build a dream that can become your, this future that you want to exist in for the next 20, 30, 40 years or the rest of your life. But life is like this never ending, like train track that keeps switching gears and switching tracks, and you don't know where you are from one place to the next. Just for us to come together might not have ever happened. The stress involved, the extreme endurance we had to go through with different aspects in his life and my life, it's a miracle. And so it's a blessing for us to be together.
Well, when I was looking, and like there was, remember the time when just before COVID hit, we kept seeing this black, almost like dust that would come over everything and would keep us apart for a long period of time. We said, there's nothing going to do.
There's no way.
What could possibly happen that would stop us from coming together?
Yeah.
Well, COVID hit. And the things I've seen with COVID, I've talked to in other videos and stuff, we've seen this coming for a long time, and we didn't quite know what it would be. They didn't tell us it's going to be. She showed it to me as a cloud of dust, black dust that was like locusts in a way, that would come in and just completely everything was really confusing, and not really couldn't understand a lot of stuff that was happening at the time. It was really hard to see during COVID. And this is what we kept seeing. We had no idea what that was going to be, except it ended up being something that we never thought would be possible, that would ever happen. So the one thing that we thought, nobody's seen COVID coming into the sense of, there's going to be a pandemic that shuts the whole world down for almost 2 years. Well, we went through 18 months. We've seen each other 3 months of the 18 months. Yeah. We were kept apart for 13 months because of COVID.
Yeah.
It was friggin' ridiculous, and nobody ever thought that would be possible.
Yeah.
So they do show you things that have a very distinctive meaning and feeling behind them, but they might not tell you exactly what that is going to be.
Right.
But it is very loud, and it makes a lot of sense now than at the time we were first seeing it. Didn't make any sense at all. Yeah. And this is what the spirit world is like. It's like the way I experience the spirit world is like very different than Abbey, but it's also very similar. But we're like oracles. Like back in the day, they would tell you a story, show you something. They wouldn't say that on this date in 1964, there's an event that's going to happen, and it's going to be a plane that crashes on the side of a mountain and then causes a chain reaction, blah, 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 blah. It's more like I just explained to you. When you're in that energy, it's confusing. It's dark. You can't see. We're not going to be able to see each other. This is what they showed me. This dark energy that goes all over the friggin' world. And it was like, in that was extremely confusing and chaotic. And it lasted a lot longer than we would like it to have lasted. And when people come out of it, they're confused. Well, there's so much damage that COVID created in the human race that people aren't talking about it.
Yeah.
They're not wanting to admit it. And it's still this way. So the idea of life is changing constantly. But the only thing that we have control over is what we do and how we react to everything in our own lives. We can't change what Tom, Dick, and Harry does, but we can change what we do. And that understanding is probably one of the most important things that you would ever learn, is that you're the only one that can change yourself. You could try to change other people, but you cannot change them unless they're willing to change. Anyway, it's enough of talking about that.
I'm going to be doing a journey into our collective energies just to see. So every human being, we're all frequency. It's like Wi-Fi, it exists, but we can't see it, right? But if you connect all the vibrations of all the people on our planet, we have a collective, right? We have a collective consensus energy. So all the good and all the bad and all the manipulating, all the illusion, all the blah, 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 all connected. and we take a look at that and see what the most meaningful wisdom and healing is for us to be aware of. So I'm going to translate it into images, into words, into an adventure through like a 3D environment, so that we can learn and grow. So I'm going to be doing that. And see, we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants today. We knew that we wanted to make a video, but we weren't really sure what the topic was going to be. So we just figured, you know what? We'll tell them some things about us that you guys have been asking.
Yeah. I'll do something on Anunnaki, because just to see what they have.
Joe's had some Anunnaki experiences in the last month. And what do you guys think about Anunnaki? You should tell us in the comments so we can read them.
The interesting thing is they've been coming to me, and I've been interested into understanding more about what that is, who they are, and stuff like that. Now, they've came to me and asked me, they wanted to build something so communication between us could be better, more direct. And I'm very skeptical. I've been through a lot of experience in my life, and I created a lot of things to keep, I'm a very private person, so I've had experienced aliens coming to me before, and they had a really horrifying experience, because I do have a lot of barriers and things that I put around myself, and even sounds that can tear down energy. And it's not something, it's done instinctively, and it's very difficult to know I'm doing it in a lot of ways, because my soul is very protective of who I am. And so I agreed to do that, but that's not easy for me to do, be honest with you.
Because he's giving trust to a consciousness beyond himself that might not, they might have their own agenda, their own vision, their own idea. So how do you know for sure? I did a journey into some of his recent experiences. Now, what I found first and foremost, it wasn't the Anunnaki, more so than this exchange. Him having the exchange with the Anunnaki was guiding me to help take some of his barriers down, so that he could actually have a connection with them. Because there's something in the divine asking him to learn something new from, the exchange with the Anunnaki.
See, I can go to anywhere, but I don't like things coming to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm very, I have a lot of experiences of very difficult.
I just call it, we don't want any mumbo jumbo with the energy world.
I simply, I don't want anybody bugging me unless it's something it's kind of complicated, because I've been through a lot of experience with dark energies that I've actually been able really good and the ability to keep them in check. And I also have a lot of dark sides to myself, which a lot of people do. They're not aware of it. But I don't hide my darkness. I've actually did a lot of work to heal it. So, but I also have to keep your dark side in check. So I do. But it's actively open at the same time. So the one thing that you have to understand about yourself is that you are dark and light. So you have a dark side and you have a light side. And the question is that when somebody comes to me, you might not see the light side first.
In the energy world.
Yes. And you do not want to see my dark side, because I've actually had to go and do corrections on that from alien beings that came to me, that went somewhere thinking to heal a part of myself, which was not something that should have been healed at that time. So I had to go and re-heal that being because of it. It's not, they weren't mad at me. And it's not that I'm evil. It's just that there's aspects of yourself that you don't want to see at this point, unless you're ready. And a lot of people are not ready to see that parts of themselves, so they don't, but I am. So I went into some of the most darkest parts of myself in this lifetime, and to be able to heal it and bring it into balance. It doesn't mean that I don't have a dark side. It just means it doesn't control who I am and what I do. So if you want to open up the doors to the dark side of yourself, you have to be prepared for it. And your guides will know when and help you through that experience. But not everybody's ready for it. So I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with that, but I'm leave it at that. It's way more, guys, it's way more complicated what I'm trying to explain, because I could talk for hours and hours and hours on this subject, because it is so complex. It's not simple.
That whole scenario with him, and so this was way back in like 2017.
I have thousands of experience. That's the problem. Which one?
Okay, I'm going to tell them which one. Because there were these, Joe had a dream, and there were these, I guess you could call them, they had whiter skin, kind of gray looking, but tall, and they glowed. And there was a male, female, there was male one and a female, energetically. And this is just a vague memory because it was 2017, but I remember when this happened, because Joe, it was such a meaningful dream, but it was one of those dreams that was more than just a dream. And something ended up happening where you did a journey and you found the male one was not in good shape.
Well, the female came to me in the dream, running past me, screaming her head off. And I go up to find out what's going on, and the guy's being tore apart with his...
By an aspect of Joe's dark side.
I didn't know at first what it was. So it's like, it's...
And it makes you wonder, though, because I am convinced that being human... We are extremely powerful beings in an interdimensional universe, because we're not only just this physical presence here, which is far more spiritual than we know, but we project our consciousness from a very dense environment. And from a very dense environment, we can go denser with our consciousness, or we can go to extremely bright places. So we're extremely versatile. Where you have other beings that are incarnate in other dimensions, they're going to be like air to us as human beings, but to our consciousness, we can be more dense and more influential of their dimensional reality. We could be like demons to them, you know what I mean? Where we can impact them in a very strong way. It might be harder for them to impact us because we're so ridiculously dense and they're coming from a lighter dimension.
And they might not be prepared to deal with a darker side
because
of
that's
ourselves.
Not part of their conscious experience.
Because when they come to you and they see how full of love and light you are, they don't expect to see a dark side of yourself. And that's the part that they are attracted to, because they're trying to heal that part of yourself. But you have to be prepared for something like that. Right.
But one thing I run into with Joe, for instance, he, because we're all very old souls. We're all very, very ancient. And it's what your soul has explored, how complex your soul is. And so when I was going to Joe about this Anunnaki thing to take a look at it, he was creating a horrifying vibrational sound. Like, it was almost intolerable. I kept telling him to I kept trying to reach him through that sound to get him to turn it off. So Joe, as the human being, isn't consciously choosing to do this. So what aspect of himself is doing this? I'm guided to get that part of himself to stop this I don't trust thing. And in order to turn that sound off, in order for this Anunnaki relationship to build. And it's see how we're trees? We have a bajillion branches upon branches upon branches. And so while we're the consensus of our whole tree, as a human being, we're not consciously aware of our subconscious universe, which is an extraordinary environment with bajillion parts of ourselves doing all kinds of things, making all kinds of decisions. And some of them become very influential for parts of our path that we're trying to open up, but they don't want to open it up. So this is why journeying into ourself is, such a powerful thing. There's a little squirrel over there.
Ridiculously cute, yeah.
The squirrels here in the Yukon, they're so tiny and they're so adorable looking.
They're about the size of chipmunks.
The squirrels in Iowa are big, fat squirrels. I mean, they're well fed.
But it's like minus 17 outside. Why is there a squirrel running around? It's weird. You normally don't see them in winter. Anyway.
Yeah.
That story, I had to go to actually heal that guy. And it took a while.
From 2017. Yeah.
And he's an extraordinary being and an extraordinary planetary thing. That whole story was beautiful because they glow from the chest. And they're physical, but they're also dimensional beings. They live in both. And interestingly, there was like a planet like Saturn similar.
Yeah.
But there was like ridiculous amount of moons, and some of the moons had life and were like Earth actually, and some of them were not like Earth. Some of them were dead planets. They lived on the dead planets and made them into thriving, unbelievable, amazing places to live. Why the planets were left to be simply just visited.
Yeah.
Nobody lived on the planet. They wanted the planet to grow and expand without their influence. It was extraordinary. And so I haven't been to that being in a while, but I do go visit there once in a while because it's such an extraordinary feeling, and just to experience that, and the views are just astonishing. When you're standing in a huge plate glass window, so to speak, looking at Earth-like planets around a big, huge planet like Saturn, it's just blows your friggin' mind.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's extraordinary to see, but the beings themselves are beautiful. But what I'm saying, what we're talking about this mainly for, especially for myself, is to get you to understand the diversity of your soul.
Yeah.
Don't think you're all butterflies. You're also other things.
Yeah.
But being aware about the other things and keeping that in check, so that whispers inside yourself don't manipulate you into doing something that you disagree with, is so important.
That's why when Jesus says, treat others as you would like to be treated, that is so, it's just do that. Just how is me not being completely honest here is protecting you from, like, if you could find a way to just be so honestly who you are, not be afraid to be who you are, don't hold yourself back on being who you are, and be completely open, like continue to learn how to be. Because being human, we have the ego, it keeps us, it's a survival instinct. So ego, you could say, keeps us safe. But sometimes safety puts us into a smaller and smaller box. And we don't realize that we're doing it to ourselves. And then we say things that are convenient, that we don't realize that it's actually not the right thing. Like we need to be, we need to be a little bit more honest and enjoy the adventure of honesty. And the more that you get in tune and embrace being human, I'm a huge advocate for don't escape your reality, because your reality is teaching you how to be more your true self, the you that you didn't know that you were. And so if something is breaking you down and you feel like you're losing yourself, you're actually gaining yourself. You're just not familiar with the person that this experience is introducing you to, which is far wiser and far more benevolent and beautiful, unless you choose to become bitter. Don't become bitter, because it's not who you truly are. You know what I mean?
But before Abbey does her journey, one of the interesting parts that when I went to the Anunnaki recently, is that he showed me, he came out and he is by himself, and out of this golden, really interesting thing that was created, it's a doorway. So he comes through the doorway to where I'm at. It's made out of solid gold. And he comes through the doorway, and he comes to me, and I'm standing here, and he comes in front of me, and he creates a triangle around me of aspects of his soul, aspects of who he is. And every single one of them is a different personality trait. So he's able to break up himself into all the parts of himself, and then he takes so if there's a question that's asked, or there's something that they need to discuss or want to make a decision on, he takes 10%, or say, for instance, 5% of each part of himself. They come together, and a decision is made equally based on every single one of them. So every part has an attribute to what the truth is, and how it's spoken, and how the decision is made. What's fascinating is that they take that aspect of who they are, so they make that decision. And if there's 1,000 of them, they all do the same thing. And then those 1,000 now come together and create a decision based on every decision that each one of them made. So the decision that's made is absolute. There's no questioning it, because every part of themselves had a voice. Yeah. It's extraordinary. It is actually got to the point there is no argument about what the thing was brought forward, because it is so honest. There's no ego. It's just pure honesty. And okay, this part says this part says this part says this. They take a piece of every one of those, and it comes together to create an answer. And that answer is not questioned by that individual, because it is literally the most honest answer that you're ever going to get. Because every aspect of who they are is giving a piece, giving a voice. And if we did that on Earth, we would not have problems. We wouldn't have wars. We would have nothing but peace and prosperity. Because the answers aren't questioned, because the answers are based on 100% honesty and the truth. And this is what they showed me. And this is one of the things I think they wanted me to tell you today. Anyway, you can do your journey.
I can't wait to see what you experience. So I'm going to relax. I'm going to connect with the frequency of all people combined as one consciousness, which is easy to do because the intention is what takes me to this space where that exists. It's not like my mind has to like calculate and connect, and it's the intention. The intention is a complete energy. It's a complete statement. And so I use the intention of a collective consciousness, and I go through that doorway and I see what is there. And this is what I'm meant to present. So I'm just going to get in the zone here. And then let's see what comes up. It's weird. So the energy of silver comes to me, and it's a really light colored silver. And how does this come to me? It's kind of like a spiral. It's a twist, a silver twist, and it's on the wider end of silver. I also see that there's groups of people, and there's maybe 10 different groups. And I'm above all these groups on this silver twist in the sky. And everything is kind of in a white energy, like everything's in the clouds. So am I really in the sky in comparison to where they stand there in the same white, like a white cloud? But I'm way above all of this. I'm not allowed to go down to that level to interact with the different groups. I'm allowed to just sit on the silver twist. And remember, this is our collective consciousness. This is me going through the intention to see what our collective consciousness is up to. And this is what I'm presented with. So I have to let it be authentically what it is, and then get to enjoy exploring the different clues and what they want to present without me making any of this up. It just comes into my imagination. I just allow myself to interact with it. This is how we communicate with the spirit realm. It's not an imagination at all. It's literally the spirit realm and how our body translates that energy into information that we can work with. I say that while everything is in a white cloud, the air is fresh. The air is breathable here. I say I'd really like to understand why the silver twist, but I have to sit on it. I'm using it as a chair. And I want to understand, why can I not go down and interact with the different groups? There's no answer to the question. All I can do is present the question and see what comes next. What's interesting is the whole scene is changing slightly. There isn't a long ways down anymore. There isn't these 10 groups. It's all becoming like a silvery water, and the water is touching my feet. And I'm still on the silver twist, and there's more of an atmosphere, and the clouds are disappearing, but even the sky is silvery blue. And there are clouds in the sky that are silvery. Is there like a silver lining? Like, what are they alluding to with all the silver, you know? The perspective changes from there's people down there to, oh, it's just a silvery pond now. It's just me. And it seems like wanting to understand what these different groups are exploring, thinking about, and talking about isn't necessarily for me. It's for me to discover me some more. It's for me to look into the silver ends up becoming a mirror so I can see into the reflection of myself. And if this is then our collective consciousness, we're going through a phase or a time where it's time to look into the silver pond, into the reflections of ourselves. And that's where the deepest and most profound meaning is going to come from. It's okay if you can't change the circumstance. Like, I had to accept where I was, even if it didn't make a lot of sense. I wasn't allowed to change it up. I wasn't allowed to travel, go visit, go explore other exchanges. I was only allowed to have access to what I was allowed to have access to. Even if I were to attempt to change things, not necessarily something I was going to be able to accomplish. Sometimes we just have to work with what comes and then let the universe revolve around the next thing, present it to us, and then we work with that. The universe is wise. I've learned in my life that if I think I can outsmart God, or I can outsmart this situation, or I can outsmart, I've really tested this many times. Like, I can outsmart this, I can outsmart that, but I've never been able to outsmart the situation. I've been able to go through the situation. And whatever I think is going to be what's going to create the best outcome, not necessarily the tools that ever get used, not necessarily what ends up having any ability to change the situation and mold it and shape it into the way I wanted it to be. A lot of my life has felt out of my control, out of my hands. No matter what I do, no matter how smart I think I am, like how clever, and this is definitely going to work this time, it's just, I felt like I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and going through life instead of getting to change or mold and shape it into what I wanted it to be. And so even now I'm experiencing our collective is an opportunity to look into the reflection of yourself and remember that the universe is wise and that you are being like guided into the experiences that you're meant to have. And that is the divine. If you like it or do not like it, the experiences that you're having, you're in a divine event. You are in the divine storybook of your own soul's life. Like, it's an incredible gift. It's an incredible thing. So I look into the silvery pond. Now what's interesting is I when I look down into it, I kind of fall off of this silver twist. And my legs are shaking on this pond and I can't quite stand, and the gravity is too great. And it pulls me down. And I become flat. And I can't stand, and I'm forced to just lie down on the silvery pond no matter what I do. It's not going to work. I just don't have the means, and it's not for any other reason, but it is in the divine plan for me to just lay down here because that's all I can do. So I just trust in it, and I start to sink into the water, which is kind of like an ice, but I'm moving through it. There's no temperature. I'm being sucked inside of the silvery pond. And part of it is dreamlike. Part of it is molding and shaping myself in ways that I can't conceive of. It's allowing me to, in a way, quantum leap my idea of reality into a new idea of reality without realizing it's happening. That tells me a lot of us could be going through some transformations from within. Might be inspiring some shifts and changes in our life path that could give us access to some fresh new air, right? The silver twist of our own story. We're getting absorbed into the reflection in order to experience our reflection in a new way. That part of that is a little bit of an unconscious act. It's a little bit of a dreamlike state. And then awakening as the next level of who we are, wherever that's going to be. And we're always as awake as we can be until we realize that we could have been more awake. Because that part of ourself saying, wow, man, now I look back and I see I was not seeing clearly. Well, the reason you can say that is because you've awakened. And time and the process of living gives us that gift. So you can't really look at the person that you were in the past and think less of yourself. You could look at the person in the past and hug them and thank them for everything they went through as best as they could, so that you could be who you are today. So that is the wisdom from our collective. What do you think, Joe?
She always puts me to sleep when she talks.
What? Were you sleeping?
No,
It was very dreamlike and
it's
silvery.
relaxing. She always relaxes me when she does journeys.
Yay.
So, yeah, it's very, very interesting in the sense that I think we're all going through so many things, and transforming is one of the aspects of what we do. And I think this year we need to transform, because this world, it needs us to transform into something a lot more respectful, a lot more open, a lot more, in a way, rigid. In the sense of, we need to bring forward what our beliefs are and be strong in them. We can't be wishy-washy in what we believe, because being wishy-washy is not stopping what is happening in the world. Being strong in what you believe in is what's going to change the world.
Yeah.
In more of a positive direction. Doesn't mean you have to be mean and obnoxious about doing it.
The important side about being strong in what you believe in is knowing yourself, because you can be strong in an illusion that you believe in and not even be aware that it was an illusion you were believing in. So you have to ask yourself questions. Why do I believe that? Is that coming from me, or is that just a consensus that I'm often hearing and I just adopt it? And so you have to really know who you are, and you that's when you find your authentic voice, your authentic stance.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Being true to who you are is probably the hardest thing in a world where, if you're true to who you are, people tear you down.
It's a lot more fun, though, to find yourself standing alone, because you are unique.
Yes.
When you stand alone, you are your own person.
But not tear people down because they disagree with you.
Right.
That's the whispers that are happening in the world, that I have to force everybody else to believe what I believe in. No, you don't.
I used to want to find like people that, like, I still do. I love to be around people who are intrigued by the same things.
Of course.
And I think we all are looking for a niche of people where we really relate to one another. We enjoy the sharing and the open-mindedness. And I still value, though, that, as well as the concept, which I used to dislike very much, being my own person. I don't like having to be independent and different and weird. I wanted to fit in, but I don't need to anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that that weird is the right word. I think is being different, because we're all different. We're all unique individuals. And when you're in a group of people that think like you, doesn't mean they have to think exactly like you. You just have to have common goals. Like, the most important thing they taught me is that you always have to work with love.
Yeah.
As soon as you work with something else, you're going to go down a path of the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that using other energies is wrong. It is how you use them and why you're using them that's important. And so it's like, it's nice to be around people that think like you. It's, of course, we all like that. And I think me and you in general, it's hard to find people that think like us.
Yeah.
That want to have a world that's full of love and understanding and respect and growth and artistry and like it's like, it doesn't mean you have to be weak.
Yeah.
It just means you have to respect other people. And I always say that a lot, but I find people don't respect anybody anymore. It's like, I look at a lot of these arguments that are happening in the world right now, and I look at them and I'm thinking, this person is not willing to think any other way except what they want. No matter what it does, or even if they're proven wrong, they're still going to say, to the point where they're right and everybody else is wrong. And I'm going to force you to do it my way because my way is right.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, if he's wrong, at some point he's going to understand that, either he's dead or alive. Then what do you do with that information? You're going to have to learn from it. You're going to have to grow from it. And it's going to be a very hard lesson. Because if you go down forcing other people, be belligerent, rude, obnoxious, screaming, yelling, hurting people all along the way just to prove that you're right. Because it's not that you believe that you're wrong. You believe that you're right, but you're trying to force your beliefs on other people so heartedly that you're willing to hurt them and to do it. Yeah. And that is wrong. And that lesson is not an easy one to learn.
It comes back to do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. And figuring out what that actually means.
It's a golden rule that nobody seems to follow anymore.
It's important we live from our heart and be willing to be okay being wrong and be patient. But it's also okay to be boldly yourself and boldly in what, I don't know, your heart, your own heart.
Well, I think I better go. This journey is skidding. We've been talking for a while.
We've been.
Let me just go and just connect to the Anunnaki again. Ugh, sorry. It was really disorientating when I said that. It was like everything just kind of went, whoa, it spun and got really warpy all of a sudden. It's part of the message.
Yeah.
Is spinning. So when you go to a specific place, let me see here. One of the things I was told, because I create a vortex of light around myself, and I spin, and I spin with the intention of doing something and going somewhere. I was told I should do this every single time. So when I put an intention forward, there's absolutely nothing can stop me from going to the place I'm going into. Well, if you walk there without instantly going there, you can be manipulated into going somewhere else. Doesn't mean you will be. It's just that there's other forces that are going to interfere with what you want to do with the intention. And so by spinning, I go directly to there. But it's not just spinning. It's like literally the spinning is pure love. And it raises my vibration by pulling energy from the universe, literally one strand at a time. So the vortex is connected with the millions, if not billions, strands of hair of energy hair that you pull from the universe to wrap around yourself. It creates extraordinary. It's extraordinary what that is. And I'm still trying to understand what exactly it is. But it's not just protection. It's not just love. It's transformation. It is amplifying energy. It is direction. It tears down everything if it needs to. But only the things that need to be transformed. So I could literally go to a space and just spin and pull everything out of that space into this vortex and out and be transformed from the top. Like basically come out with a completely different energy. Anunnaki wants me to say this to people because I don't normally talk about it. And so when I go there, there's no disorientation. It's simply just, I am there. And I'm in an area inside this golden doorway. They said it's much more than a doorway. There is a doorway, but it's much, much, much more than that. And I'm inside it, and I see these, it's like a purplish blue and white light. And there's crystals that are on they're floating around, but they're at different heights, and you have like a disc that's pure white, and the crystals are growing from the disc. And some of them are growing downwards and some are growing upwards. And which direction they're growing into, the disc is glowing and the crystals themselves are glowing. I noticed there's one black crystal amongst all the white crystals. And they're like white light. You can't see through them. So there's only one black one that you can't see through either. But there's one, it's almost like a flower in the center. And there's a person sitting in the center of this flower. And but the flower is made of crystal itself, but it's clear and it's full of beautiful rainbows. And he is sitting above that, and he's looking at the black crystal because he notices I'm looking at it as well. And it's like, no matter, you could say that this represents a part of who you are. And there's always going to be a dark crystal, but is that a bad thing? It's funny because you look at something dark and you automatically think it's bad. Not necessarily everyone, but a lot of people do. Dark is black is bad, except, and you look and he lights up more, and there's a lot more black crystals here than you can even see. All I'm seeing is the light crystals, but when I see the black crystal, I notice that it's above that black crystal, there's many, many, many more black crystals. So that black crystal is here as a transitional point between the light and the dark crystals. So it's like, you could say this is a representation of your soul. And the person that's in the center controlling this is your higher self. And every aspect of a crystal, you could say, is a lifetime. So when I say that, all of a sudden the room expands. And you see all the lifetimes now in the crystals. You can see whole lifetimes. Some are light and some are dark. And some are beautiful colors. You're starting to see more and more and more and more colors. Even the darks have beautiful colors in them now. So you can see in black and white, or you can see in full color. And when you see the actual extraordinariness, like this, how extraordinary this is, instead of just seeing black and white, you start to see all the things in between, and crystals that you didn't even see before are there as well. But even the white crystals aren't white anymore. They're full of color. Some of them have dark specks and light specks, but beautiful colors all through them. And it's like a whole lifetime in every crystal. And he says, wouldn't it be extraordinary if we could have access to every one of these lifetimes in this world? What would that person look like? What would that person be able to do if they had access to all the lifetimes? Remember all your lifetimes. You would be an extraordinary being, because your higher self would be the one that would be on the planet itself, walking the earth. But then you would see things differently, wouldn't you? You would see everyone on earth as something that is like, life and death would have a whole new meaning to it. It would be meaningless. So you see death all over the world, but you would look at that as completely different. You wouldn't have the empathy, and you'd almost become, you would say, used to it, so to speak. It's not the right word I'm trying to say, but you'd become used to the idea of people dying. It wouldn't be a big deal. You would, because you see all the extraordinary things that come out of that. So you'd be sad, but you wouldn't be sad anymore about a person that's dying, because you would see what that soul has been through and all the lifetimes that it's ever lived through yourself. You might have known that soul a million lifetimes. So you understand that every single time, and the choices after they came, even when they came, it is so different that's just why we don't know and understand all these other lifetimes, because when we come to the earth, we would have so many different understanding of what things are. Life and death would be meaningless. There wouldn't be any fear of death. There wouldn't even be any fear of murder and hatred, because you've gone so far above it. You understand why the person does what they do, why they do it. The understanding goes so deep, and there's so many layers and levels that you wouldn't learn anything. It's funny because I remember watching a video, and the guy said, well, if you knew all your lifetimes, you wouldn't grow. You can't grow, I should say, because you don't know all your lifetimes. But this is the opposite they're telling me. Because if you know everything, you wouldn't make the mistakes that you make because you already did them already. But there's something about making the mistakes, and every mistake is done in a slightly different way than it was before. But you would never do that if you had access to all your memories. So not having access to your memories, you could say you're going through a world blind, making ridiculous mistakes all the friggin' time because you don't know anything. But if you did know everything, you wouldn't be making these mistakes. You wouldn't even be able to live in this world because you're so far above it that people themselves wouldn't have it doesn't have the same meaning. It's not that they don't have love, and it's the understanding of what everything means and how it's connected to the universe. It would be it's so extraordinary. That's why your higher selves never help you. Because they know if they do, they basically told you what to do. You would become, and you wouldn't go through the things that you need to go through in order to, when in the agreement you came in this lifetime. So he sits back and watches you he understands, but he doesn't understand at the same time. There might be a part of a past life that he had that understands it, but I'm telling you, when you have the access to all your lifetimes, you would not be able to live in this world. Because it's just, it's like too much information. Too many things that you've learned, too many things that you know. What we would consider meaningful would already been put inside yourself so many times. Like you see a beautiful scenery. Well, you've seen trillions of beautiful scenery, so after a while that scenery has little meaning to you. So coming here blind is like a baby. Every time we come here as a baby, we learn things for the first time. So it builds on our experiences based on blundering through the world, not knowing what the hell to do. It sounds kind of, I don't know how the word you say. People say, well, that sucks. Well, it doesn't, actually. If I could explain what they're trying to say, you would understand. It's like when you know everything in the universe, our lifetimes are meaningless. But they're not meaningless at the same time. Because we know nothing, we bring extraordinary information back to our higher selves. But if we had access to all that information, we would never really be able to we wouldn't be able to grow the same way because we would never decide to go, for instance, when you suffer. If you knew all the things you would never want yourself to suffer. Yeah. You just wouldn't do it. You would do something else so you wouldn't suffer. But because we don't know everything, we create situations that we do suffer, which we learn a massive amount of things from that suffering. And the suffering that we would have of a person, a loved one that passed away, wouldn't be any suffering. Because we would already understand everything about that person, all the lifetimes you live with them, and what you're going to do afterwards. So why would you miss that person? Why would you be in suffering from that? It's extremely hard to put into words, guys, but that's kind of the gist of it.
But why do you think the Anunnaki wanted to share that message with you, Joe? Like, it's for everybody, but maybe they were trying to tell you something too. Just curious.
Because sometimes it's hard to live in a world that it feels, it's just hard to live in a world when you think a certain way. And nobody else seems to be able to think that way. But the reason why we go through the world so dumbed down, and maybe I want aspects of myself because I know I'm missing so many parts.
Yeah.
But the reason why we're missing these parts is because we have to learn a specific thing in a specific way, or simply just making ridiculous mistakes throughout our whole lives. And it's not a mistake that we would think is a mistake. It's not like that, because we might not consider it a mistake at all. But if you had all the knowledge in what all of your lifetimes, I can't explain how ant-like we would appear.
There's a certain level of confidence that you would have developed.
Not just confidence, knowing.
Knowing.
You would know everything about science, everything about every
Math,
bloody possible thing you could imagine on Earth. You would be the most extraordinary human being that ever existed.
If you could keep all that information in your brain. Because how many 40, 50, 60-year-olds have a harder time remembering every detail when they were 10?
This is what they're showing me, that if you had access to all this information, your brain wouldn't be a brain anymore. It would
That's
be connected
true. You
to
would be an aspect of the energy frequency of all that information.
You would literally bring multidimensional spaces to your mind.
Yeah, I can see that.
You would never be able to live in this world, because what I say that is because you'd be beyond it at a level that it's like being part of the whole universe and being everywhere all at the same time, and then try to have to live on Earth as a normal human being. Being connected to everything in the universe simultaneously. It's absolutely unfathomable. And that's why we come here like dumb babies, because we are. Like when I see the experience of a little tiny bit of aspect of what that means, they're wanting us to understand that we are extraordinary beings, but when we come here, we are here to grow and experience life. Yeah. Because even the struggles are important, because we wouldn't make those struggles if we knew everything. But because we don't know everything, we make mistakes all the time. But this brings extraordinary learning to our higher selves, to the universe. Otherwise, we would never be able to learn. So we have to know nothing in order to at least try to figure something out that we didn't do in a past life. Like we might bump into that prickly thing that we know about because we poked into it 1,000 times before, but we might do it differently this time. Yeah. You know, we might have actually did a cartwheel and then hit it. Like we could literally meet somebody that we already knew would be a bad person to meet, but you wouldn't experience all the things to learn from it. Yeah. It also makes us become something that we're meant to be, that we would never become that because we would never need to become that because we already were that. It's like there would be no reason to come here if we knew everything. And I think they're trying to tell me that I need to be an acceptance of what I am on this earth right now. And it's for everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be who you are because that's why you came here.
Yeah.
And that you are extraordinary, that you don't have to be you don't have to have control of other people to be extraordinary. Like, it's like they're telling me that everybody's so extraordinary. That doesn't matter. What matters is to be good to other people. That's the trick here. Is we're put in a world with nothing in order to be able to grow through a world and still have respect and dignity by the time we're done. And by doing that is one of the reasons why we come here, is to do that. And when you look at other people that think they're better than somebody else, this is one of the loudest things I keep hearing, is that when you think you're better than someone else, you are literally the worst of the worst. You would actually be a murderer, and you'd be less disrespected than if you think you're better than other people. Because that thinking right there creates destructions of whole worlds. Yeah. When you think you're above everyone else, that is the worst cardinal sin that you could ever do. And that echoes really, 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 really loud, because whole worlds were destroyed because of people that thought that way. Making a mistake in killing somebody or killing somebody purposely is a lot, I hate to say it, you're better off doing that than you are thinking you're better than everyone else. Because that is a mistake that can be corrected very quickly when you die. But that thinking that you're better than somebody else goes with you when you die. And can expand and grow and corrupt a massive amount. And it never stops growing until you learn that you're not better than someone else. But the problem is we're full of people on this world that went through generations of thinking they're better than other people. And they're so fucking loud. That's why this world is so screwed up. Because the people that don't think that way need to take control over those people that think they're better than everyone else. Until that happens, the world is always going to be thrown into darkness, because when you think you're better than everyone else, you'll do extraordinary things.
To always be right.
And to always be right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the message.
That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of learning. What do you guys think about all this stuff? You should give us some suggestions for the next video, topics to talk about and journeys to dive into, and we'll just see what comes up. We'll see what comes next. Mm-hmm. If you want to do a session with me, you can check out what I'm offering at my website at abbeynormalswisdomquest.com. And Joseph, you want me to help you out?
AminRossTheAwakening.com.
AminRossTheAwakening.com.
Yes.
And YukonSkies.com.
And Neo.
Neo!
You still alive back there? Hey, buddy. Say hello. He's like, I just want to get out of this car already.
Please, let's go.
I want to run. Go for a walk. Anyway. He's a sweet boy, though. Mm-hmm. He is one of the most gentlest dogs I've ever had. Like, he will give you a big... You can put your arms out, and he'll come in and give you a massive hug.
Yeah. He knows how to snuggle.
And hug.
Yeah.
Like, he literally will wrap his... Like, when you hug him, he'll wrap his paws around you. It's friggin...
Yeah.
Melts your heart. It really is.
Thank you all for watching. And until next time.
Take care.